Comatose, good to see how you doing. How you been? Hey, Miles and family, let's go. You're the first one in today. Evening, Miles, and how are you? Callie, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? How's things? Morning, Miles and CMF. Shelly, good to see you all morning. How you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles. Scott, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Evening, Miles. Lee, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? How's things? Hi, Miles. This is CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Dennis, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles, CMF. Okay. There has been quite a few things happening today, straight after Liberation Day. And that is a lot of countries some are deciding to have some sort of discussions with Trump. Some are deciding to go into a tariff battle with Trump, which is a losing battle. And more companies have decided to essentially cross the border into the US and start manufacturing there. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you. How you doing, XRP? How you been? Okay. Let's do intro disclaimer. By that time, everyone's tuned in for the first part of the live. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you all, free and forever. How you doing? How you been? Welcome to the CMF Live if you're watching this for the first time ever. The CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. I grew up with a persona of Crypto Miles, and I'm hosting a live that you're watching right now, Monday to Friday. You can tune to this live where I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And we also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions or statements to make, put it outside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions you may have or even read out your statements. Now, a lot of things have been happening straight after Liberation Day, which we're going to go through on tonight's live. We're going to go through the perspectives from different countries regarding essentially Liberation Day. We're going to talk about a little bit regarding the recession scenario that's brewing up again, just as Trump has introduced essentially counter-tariffing all the countries that have been tariffing the United States for the longest time. And a lot of news channels are coming out with the idea that, you know, we're heading towards some sort of recession because Trump has decided to tariff the entire world. But no news channel is talking about, well, no essentially liberal or democratic news channel is talking about how the rest of the world has been essentially tariffing the United States for the longest time. And, you know, what Trump is trying to do should have been achieved by previous presidents of the United States, to be fairly honest. And that is exactly what Trump said when he was asked the question of, are you not afraid of recessions? On live news, Trump was asked, are you not afraid of recessions? Recessions are coming back up because you've decided to tariff the entire world. And Trump said to the person that asked the question, the journalist, and the rest of the journalists, that the fake media is now spreading essentially propaganda that America is heading towards a recession, or essentially a lot of countries are heading towards recessions because of Trump. And Trump said essentially America's economy is better than ever before. That is true. I'll be very honest. America's economy is doing better. A lot of manufacturing has decided to move back to the United States, which is very good in terms of employee rates, in terms of the manual labor data that's going to be coming out soon. Regarding the gold cards that Trump has sold, he's raised a tremendous amount of money from the gold cards, which is going to go towards the deficit. Also, regarding Elon Musk, the Doge department he's created, he has cut out a lot of unnecessary spending. Billions of dollars have been saved because of Elon Musk and Trump. Manufacturing is going back to the United States because of Elon Musk and Trump. So a lot of positive things have happened for the US. In terms of egg prices, that's also came down. In terms of meat prices, that's also came down. Now, tariffs might cause that to go slightly back up again, but depending on what products it is. However, what Trump has said regarding the US, the economy is doing better than ever before. It's true 100%. But the media does not want to essentially give off that image that Trump has achieved something good for the United States. And they would rather either lie or point out things that don't really matter, to be fairly honest. But we're going to go through essential perspectives on tonight's live regarding different countries when the tariff news has actually hit them and their new speeches today. We're going to go through. We're also going to talk about on tonight's live regarding one particular company who's decided to essentially liquidate their assets, Bitcoin assets. We're going to talk about essentially CEO perspectives that are coming out regarding the market space after tariffs. And is it going to be a positive? Is it going to suddenly turn to a positive for the crypto space, especially? We're going to talk about essentially ACH, HBAR, and USDC on tonight's live as well. They all seem to be working together now. We're going to talk about a ginormous Wall Street company entering essentially the blockchain space. Ginormous Wall Street company entering the blockchain space. Interesting timing. A lot of news channels are right now, CNN, NBC News, and so on. They're telling people the markets are doomed, the stock market is doomed, the crypto market is doomed, is what the news is telling such people. But in reality, the CEOs and CFOs, and essentially also major established, major institutions, billion-dollar institutions, are seeing it differently. They're actually saying there's an opportunity to enter the crypto market space now. We're also going to talk about CBDCs on tonight's live because that has been talked about essentially in the US House Committee. So we're going to talk about what they discussed and what they passed and what they didn't pass. We're going to talk about Deutsche Bank on tonight's live as well, giving a signal of US dollar confidence, but it's a twist on it, which we're going to talk about on tonight's live. We're going to talk about South Korea on tonight's live as well, because South Korea has decided to open its doors not to essentially only to its own institutions, which I revealed, 3,500 South Korean institutions are about to be entering the crypto space, but also South Korea has decided to enter into essentially another field, which is going to open up a lot of doors for the crypto space and add a lot of liquidity to the market space as well. We're also going to talk about on tonight's live regarding MicroStrategy. They've decided to essentially make some other purchases. We're going to talk about what's essentially how they're going to raise their next amount of money, and obviously it's going to be allocated towards Bitcoin. We're going to talk about Brazil on tonight's live as well. The largest bank in Brazil essentially has decided to enter into the crypto space. We're going to talk about another major essentially US institution that's decided to enter the crypto space as well. We're going to talk about on tonight's live regarding the SEC chairman nominee, who essentially is Paul Atkins, of what's the stage has got to so far. Is he going to become the SEC chairman? We're going to talk about also RLUSD on tonight's live as well. So a lot of things essentially to discuss, and mainly to do with the tariff situations, essentially the fake news that is spreading regarding a collapse of some sort of market spaces, and how, interesting enough, as a lot of people might see the crypto space as pretty much doomed, on the other side, institutions day by day are entering the crypto space at a much more higher level and bringing a lot of money to the table, which the news doesn't want to share for some reason. We're going to talk about essentially quite a lot of misinformation that needs to be rectified on tonight's live as well. Now, before we go through any of those news topics, and the first one essentially being regarding Eric Trump's perspective that just came out regarding the situation of tariffs, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's going on there, and then we go straight into the first news, which is regarding tariffs. Video is glitchy and slightly delayed today. Ooh, that's not good. Thank you for letting me know, Shelly. Good evening, Miles and CMF. JP, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and on CMF. Adi, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles and CMF. Mickey, good to see you. How you doing? How you been, brother? Evening, Miles and CMF. Funky brother, good to see you. How you doing? George, hi, Miles and CMF. Good to see you. How you doing? Is this the Black Swan event? Is what Funky brother has said. Could this be counted as a Black Swan event? Depends. The only way this tariff situation could be counted as a Black Swan event is if some particular countries decide not to abide by what Trump has essentially put down as the rules of the game when it comes to tariffs. Trump just wants a level playing field. He's not asking for much from all these countries, even though these countries are lying to their own citizens, taking out of proportion, saying Trump is the bad man here. We are not the bad man, is what Europe is saying to their own citizens. Essentially, Asian countries are saying to their own citizens and so on. And the UK, well, they did a balanced 10% situation. But here it is. So Eric Trump, essentially, regarding the Black Swan type of event, it could only happen if some major jurisdictions decide to go on a head-on-head battle. Then it could end very bad for that jurisdiction. So if China decides to go head-on-head with Trump in terms of a tariff battle, China is going to lose. 100% China is going to lose. 1 billion, essentially 1 trillion% China will lose a head-on-head battle with the United States in terms of tariffs. If anybody essentially understood basic economics, it would explain to you that China would lose in every essentially sort of angle. Because if China doesn't abide by Trump's tariff policies, then it will lead to more sanctions for China. If China gets sanctioned more, then China's economy is going to cripple itself. China's economy in terms of employees has already decreased. 2.5 million Chinese employees have essentially been fired. 2.5 million Chinese employees have already been fired because of this tariff situation, because of the pressure it's putting on China. If China gets sanctioned by the United States because they don't abide by tariff laws, because they don't want to reduce their fentanyl coming inside the United States, if China gets essentially in any sort of way sanctioned by the US, that means China gets sanctioned by the rest of the world. And that means China can't sell their products to the rest of the world. And China relies essentially on exports. China relies on essentially exporting all of its products around the world and selling it to every sort of market space. If China gets sanctioned from the US market space, it's the biggest market space they ever had access to, which means China's economy is going to cripple itself. If China can't sell, it's done for, which means China has no choice but to abide what the United States has to say. They have no choice. But the news will tell you otherwise. The news will essentially, CNN, NBC News will come out and say China is standing their ground. They're going up against the big, bad orange bully, which is known as Trump, is what CNN would say to people. But CNN is made for morons, I'll be very honest. Now, Eric Trump has came out with some interesting perspectives. He said, this is what Eric Trump said. Eric Trump says he wouldn't want to be the last country that negotiates a trade deal with his dad. Eric Trump made a very, very smart and genuine opinion. He put an opinion out there that said, I wouldn't want to be the last person to make a deal with Trump in terms of trade wars. So if you're smart enough, if you're a smart government, you would make a trade deal with the United States now. You don't want to be the last country on Trump's list. Eric Trump went on X essentially and today told the world exactly how things are going to go under his father's new trade policy. He said, I wouldn't want to be the last country that tries to negotiate a trade deal with essentially Donald Trump. The first to negotiate will essentially have a win. The last will absolutely lose. And I have this movie my entire life. This came just hours after Donald Trump essentially signed a sweeping tariff plan at the White House that has already caused a pile of angry reactions across the globe. According to the retainers, Trump's new plan will apply a 10% base tariff on imports from all countries, then add higher essential rates depending on how much the White House believes each country essentially should or has been taxing the US goods. The administration posted a chart, which I revealed yesterday on this live, explaining how much each country is tariffing the United States and how much the United States has decided to tariff those countries back, which I essentially revealed on yesterday's live. The administration posted that chart. The new rates include 34% obviously on China, 20% on European Union, 46% on Vietnam, 32% on Taiwan. And India also reacted quickly as well. India's Department of Commerce said it's still carefully essentially examining the implications of the announcements. The US tariffs on India now sit at 27%. The Trump Truth Social post said 26%. The disparity wasn't explained by either side. Thailand's finance minister essentially has came out and told reporters that his country could lose 1% point from its economic growth forecast because of Trump's tariffs. You see, already countries are feeling the pressure from Trump's tariffs. And Trump did very modest tariffs, as I explained yesterday. For example, the European Union essentially tariffing the United States 39%. Trump decided only to tariff them back 20%, and already Europe essentially is feeling the pressure. Taiwan, within 24 hours, has already felt the pressure, essentially. The Prime Minister of essentially Poland, the Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, also gave a number. He said these tariffs could knock a 0.4% of Poland's GDP, which equals around 10 billion essentially zillions, which is around $2.64 billion, a severe and unpleasant blow because it comes from the closest ally. But we will survive it, Tusk wrote essentially on X. Our friendship must also survive this test. German officials are already talking essentially strategies. The acting economy minister Roberts said essentially today that Trump will buckle under pressure if Europe unites. If Europe unites, Germany is already firing employees in essentially Volkswagen, which owns Audi, and a tremendous list of vehicles, essentially. Germany's automotive industry is pretty much on the verge of collapse. France's real estate economy is on the verge of collapse. Spain is pretty much on the verge of collapse because the amount of people they're letting into their country, and they can't sustain that moment. Italy is not doing too well for itself either, and those are the four countries that are the four pillars of Europe, and those four countries are not doing together essentially separately. They're not doing well. Essentially, they're not doing well separately, and they're definitely not going to do better with each other when they're together either, unless they're going to start borrowing more money to each other, which will collapse their own economies over a decade or so. This is what I see, that Donald Trump will buckle under pressure, and he corrects his announcements under pressure, he said during a press conference. You see, now who does the bully look like? Is it Trump that's bullying essentially world leaders? Or is it now looking like that the world leaders have been bullying the US for the longest time? Because if people are smart enough, they'll realize that it's technically other world leaders that are trying to bully Trump or bully the United States, and Trump is standing up for the citizens of the United States. That is essentially what is happening right now. It's a clear picture. Trump tariffing the essentially EU back only 20%. The EU has been tariffing the US for over a decade, 39%. Who does the bully look like now? And now that Trump essentially said 20% tariffs, the EU is saying we're going to buckle down, we're going to go head to head with Trump. Who's the bully in this scenario? Greece finance minister essentially issued a warning of his own. He said the US tariffs are a big change in direction and go against how the European Union believes economic policies should be handled. As a country, we are in favor of free trade, said essentially in a written statement. We hope that this chapter will last as little as possible. So Greece is already feeling the pressure with their recent statement of this. Essentially, we hope this chapter will last as little as possible, because the longer this tariff situation carries on, the higher the chance essentially Greece is going to collapse. The South African presidency said essentially also that the 30% tariffs imposed on Trump's administration have created an urgency to renegotiate essentially their terms. The tariffs affirm the urgency to negotiate a new, essentially a mutually beneficial trade agreement with the United States, and their statements said. As you can see, South Africa has already, within 24 hours, decided to make contact with Trump's administration and negotiate their essentially tariffs. Already, South Africa has decided to wave the white flag. I told everybody on yesterday's live that going up against Trump, and I've been saying it for the past week or the past month, going up against Trump is a losing battle for all these world leaders. I said doing a tariff battle is a losing battle for all these world leaders. And I said yesterday, on yesterday's live, that this tariff situation is very, very temporary. It's going to last, if the leaders of these countries are intelligent enough, it would only last 24 to 36 to 48 hours max. If the leaders of these countries really decide to go head on head with the United States, the biggest market space on the planet, and try to do a tariff battle, then they're going to collapse their own economy, and then they're going to blame Trump for collapsing their own economy, when in reality, it was the leaders of those countries that were too greedy and they didn't want to lower their own tariffs, which pretty much explains Europe. They're tariffing the US 39%. Trump decided to tariff them back 20% after a decade, or longer than a decade. And Europe doesn't want to back down. So if Europe collapses going on a head-to-head battle with Trump, whose fault is it? Trump's or Europe's, that's been tariffing the US, their ally, for 39%? It's interesting that essentially when Trump tariffs countries back, he's seen, as I said, the bully. When these countries get tariffed, they say, we thought we were the US's ally. The Europe essentially comes out and goes, we thought we were the US's ally. Canada comes out and goes, we thought we were the US's ally. Mexico says the same thing. All these Asian countries say the same thing. We thought, Taiwan comes out and goes, we thought we were the ally of the United States. If you're the ally of the United States, why are you essentially tariffing the United States for over a decade, 84%? If you're their ally, why are you tariffing them 84%? If you're their ally, why are you tariffing them 39% for over a decade? The tables have been turned so much that if people still can't see the bigger picture here, if people still can't see the clear picture here, that all of these countries are coming out and saying, we thought the United States was our ally. CNN is coming out and saying, Canada essentially is saying that they thought the US was their ally. Then why doesn't Canada lower their tariffs? Why doesn't Canada stop their borders if they're the US's ally? If Canada cares about the United States, why doesn't Canada close their borders? If Canada cares about the United States, why does Canada let Chinese fentanyl come inside the United States and poison United States citizens? These don't sound like allies to me. Canada doesn't sound like a good ally to the United States if they open their borders, letting everybody into the United States. Mexico doesn't sound like a good ally either if they're opening their borders and everybody in. Europe doesn't sound like a great ally to the United States either if they're tariffing them back for more than a decade, 39%. How are these allies? But that's what the news makes it look like. The news comes out, CNN comes out and goes, Yeah, these countries said they thought the United States was their ally and that the United States have let them down. It should be the other way around. If you're their ally, why are you tariffing them so high? Why are you opening their borders to United States citizens? Why are you letting fentanyl come in through your borders to the US if you're the US's ally? These are very genuine statements that obviously will never be said on the news because, as we all know, the news is just genuinely allergic to facts or telling the truth. But South Africa has already decided to wave the white flag already. In London, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer addressed a group of business leaders inside 10 Downing Street. He said that Trump had a mandate to do what he believed was right for the United States, but warned that the United Kingdom would make decisions based on its own national interest. He added that decisions we take in the coming days and weeks will be guided only by our national interest, in the interest essentially of our economy, in the interest of our businesses around this table. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgio essentially criticized the 20% tariff slapped on the European Union. The tariffs essentially are wrong and not in the interest of either party, she said, as reported by Dow Jones. She also warned that a trade war would essentially eventually weaken the West in favor of other global players. Melania also said she would push to reach a deal with the United States and avoid escalations. So, South Africa, within 24 hours, is already waving the white flag to tariff scenarios. Italy is already waving the white flag towards essentially tariff situations. They don't want to escalate either. Spain's economy minister said today that Madrid is willing to negotiate but won't accept what he called unfair and unjustified tariffs. Spain is a part of the EU, which was hit with a flat 20% rate across the board under Trump's new rules. He said that the government will take action to protect local companies and consumers from financial hits. Spain, in some sort of a way, within 24 hours, is already waving the white flag as well. The strongest comments came from France. The French government spokesperson, Sophie, said Trump's new tariffs reflect an imperialist posture and accused him of acting like the master of the world, because he is. The United States is essentially the leader of the world. It's the biggest market space in the world. Their currency controls the world, and it's going to, even in digital form. The number one currency inside the crypto space isn't the essentially Chinese yen or the Japanese yen. It's not the essentially Russian ruble. That's essentially the number one stable coin in the world. It's still the US dollars. Even going into a digital world, the number one stable coin is going to be the US dollars. Speaking essentially on RLT radio, she said the European Union will not let this slide. And Prime Minister confirmed that the EU is preparing to introduce countermeasures starting in mid-April, with more coming later in April if the situation doesn't change. Genuinely, who looks more like a bully now? Europe has the cheek. Genuinely, Europe has the cheek to tariff the US 39% for the longest time, years upon years. And the US does it back for one day. The US comes out and tariffs the EU 20% for one day, for 24 hours. And Europe is already having a hissy fit. Europe is saying Trump is a bad man. We thought Trump was our ally. While the EU has been tariffing the US for over a decade. The US tariffs them back for one day. And they're already essentially, having a massive hissy fit over it. They're crying about it, literally, saying, how could Trump do this? But you've been doing it to them for over a decade. It's just ridiculously funny, is what it is. Now, moving on from tariffs. And as I said before, on yesterday's live, tariffs are going to be temporary. And a lot of countries already have decided to wave the white flag. It's been 24 hours, and some countries are already feeling the pressure. 24 hours, some countries are already feeling the pressure. They're already waving the white flag to Trump. South Africa is waving the white flag. Spain is on the verge of waving the white flag. Italy is waving the white flag. Poland is going to be waving the white flag. A lot of countries, actually, one by one, they're lining up to wave the white flag already. It's been 24 hours on the tariffs. Now, moving on. So this is why I said it's not going to be, the end of the market space in any sort of a way. This is just the beginning of a ballistic change that's going to be coming for the market space of upwards measures. Now, moving on to Sorry about that. Moving on to the Genius Group. So one company has decided to liquidate their Bitcoin. So they haven't said how much Bitcoin they had. It could be a small amount, a medium account, or a large portfolio. We just don't know because they haven't revealed the numbers, but they have came out with this. Genius Group liquidates their Bitcoin due to legal essentially constraints. So it's not because the market space is doing bad right now or so on and so on. It's because they had to do it due to legal reasons. Genius Group under CEO Roger James Hamilton was compelled to liquidate part of its Bitcoin holdings due to a legal constraint imposed by a US court in New York. Genius Group forced the sale of Bitcoin highlights the company's financial challenges and testified by legal constraints. Investors' confidence is impacted, leading to a significant drop in stock price. Genius Group's Bitcoin first strategy faced legal obstacles, resulting in a sale of 10 Bitcoins and more. The rest they haven't explained. Aimed at a liquidity crisis, the company couldn't follow the strict plans, impacting essentially financial health. Significant reactions were due to court orders. CEO Rogers, essentially James Hamilton, expressed concerns about court-imposed restrictions, which blocked the company's plans, including fundraising and Bitcoin acquisitions. Ongoing litigations involved alleged fraud, and an essentially purchase agreement dispute affecting operations. The sale of Bitcoin required for operational needs led to a drastic drop in the stock price, value by 53%, highlighting a severe investor confidence blow. The injunction limited the Genius Group's options to address financial stability. The company's liquidity crisis revealed essentially broader financial implications, including operational downsizing and rights of offering cancellations. Roger James Hamilton, CEO and founder of Genius Group, stated, "We never essentially deemed that it was possible that the US court could block the company from being able to issue shares, raise essentially funds, or buy Bitcoin, or actions that will normally be decided by a public company shareholders or board rather than a court. The injunction prevented fundraising, crucial for sustaining its Bitcoin reserves and market positions." It's quite interesting, actually, because Strategy, which is MicroStrategy or MicroSaylor, does this type of movement where they raise essentially for convertible bonds and then they buy essentially Bitcoin for their own company. This company decided to do the exact same thing in the US, but they got an injunction by the courts. The immediate reactions to Genius Group's legal hurdles include distress among shareholders and a volatile stock performance. Market participants showed cautious amidst legal uncertainties impacting further prospects. Expert analyst points to potential long-term instability in the essentially Genius Group fails to overturn their court's decision. Historical precedents suggest that proactive measurements may help mitigate such negative financial repercussions and preserve Bitcoin holdings. Now, moving on essentially from Genius Group being essentially selling a part of their crypto portfolio, part of their Bitcoin portfolio. The 10 Bitcoin they mentioned is a bit more than that, but they haven't revealed the exact amount they have to get rid of yet. Cryptocurrency CEOs predicted how tariffs will affect Bitcoin prices is what we talk about next. So a few CEOs have came out with their perspectives in the market space of how they think it's going to go straight after the Liberation Day. So we've had Liberation Day, we've had the world tariff situation. Now it's about what's going to happen next. And some CEOs have came out with their perspectives. And the perspectives the CEOs are coming out with is pretty much, quote for quote, in the long term, it will be like a rocket, the crypto space. So short-term volatility, long-term, the crypto space is going to be an absolute rocket. So they've given some examples from historical patterns and historical movements in the market space. That's actually not related to the crypto space, but it has relevance to the crypto space. So the cryptocurrency markets has experienced a sharp decline, losing $180 million in value in the last 24 hours. Falling to essentially 6% to around $2.62 trillion have essentially been removed from the crypto market space. The decline comes in response to sweeping global tariffs announced by US President Donald Trump, which analysts warn could have significant impacts on the crypto market industry. The new tariffs announced essentially yesterday, which Trump dubbed the Liberation Day, target a range of sectors, including Chinese goods and European exports, and analysts believe the move could escalate trade tensions and disrupt global markets. Tariffs for the crypto industry present new risk, particularly for blockchain developers, mining operations, and liquidity providers. The uncertainty surrounding these policies has fueled investor concerns, leading to risk of essentially sentiments in financial markets. Despite the sudden turmoil inside the market space, some experts have a positive outlook for the future of crypto. So here it is. The outcome for crypto is going to be positive for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, in other words. prices skyrocketing over the long term as institutional investors shift capital away from increasingly unstable US-led institutions or so on, said essentially Zach Burks, the CEO of NFT platform Mythology, in an interview. But in the short term, investors remain cautious and risk-off sentiments has traders steer essentially clear of volatile assets such as cryptocurrencies and technology stocks, with the tech essentially heavy Nasdaq 100 down 3.7% in the past day. Obviously, Bitcoin follows the footsteps of the Nasdaq. Even though Bitcoin is categorized as a risk-off asset or a digital gold, it never reacts like one. We've never seen it so far. The CEO of essentially another crypto firm, platform ARI10, downplayed concerns about the impact of the tariffs. The markets, this is what he said, the markets were expecting certainty and now they have it. Kara said, the real danger was not the tariffs themselves, but the uncertainty. As investors adjust their portfolios, many are shifting capital into traditional safe havens assets, such as the US bonds and the dollars, but some analysts warn that Trump's tariffs could pose broader economic risks. BitMEX founder and the CIO, Arthur Hayes, noted that tariffs aimed at reducing trade imbalances could have unintended consequences for US Treasury bonds. The effect for treasuries is that without the issuance of dollars, foreigners cannot buy the bonds. Hayes wrote in an X essentially suggesting that the Fed may need to step in as a liquidity provider of a last resort. So Arthur Hayes is saying that the US is going to be needing some liquidity as time goes by regarding these tariff situations. And then, essentially the Fed needs to step in with essentially liquidity. Well, there are other firms out there that can provide liquidity to the United States, one of them being Ripple. Hayes has also previously predicted that a major Bitcoin rally and argued that a shift towards quantum easing could send Bitcoin to $250,000 this year, no matter what still. Aimed these macroeconomic shifts, analysts at Swiss investment bank UBS predict that the Fed will cut interest rates by 75 basis points to 100 basis points before the end of the year. Such quantum easing essentially measures typically benefit riskier assets like cryptocurrencies and tech stocks because they signal increased liquidity in financial systems. So, as I said, there's many reasons why Trump has done tariffs. It's not just because of the basis of, putting the world pretty much on the right path, making sure America is great again, making sure America is the strongest market space in the world, and making sure other countries don't overtake America's essentially market space, i.e. China. There's also the factor that when Trump does these tariffs, it puts pressure on the Fed to do interest rate cuts. If the Fed does 75 to 100 basis points, that's going to show extreme positivity towards the crypto space and towards tech stocks, which means the Nasdaq will be up, and so will essentially the crypto market space because Bitcoin follows its footsteps. However, if we have rules and regulations, it'll be even better because we can essentially decouple from Bitcoin's footsteps, and utility projects can start having essentially a bull season of their own or a bull run of their own. Now, before we go through the next news, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to answer any questions you may have. So before we go through the next news, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's going on in there. Then we go straight into the next news. We were at here. Lena, how has your day been, Miles and CMF? It's been great. Good to see you, Lena. How you doing? How you been? Pierce says, even in Miles and CMF, good to see you as well, Pierce. How you doing? Robinov has a question. He said, do you think that Trump tariffs will make some countries turn to China eventually, making CFX more bullish when implementations comes? It's an interesting outlook. It has been discussed on the news, not regarding CFX, but regarding some countries might start looking for other allies out there. For example, it's a possibility, but is it going to happen? No, because Trump is, essentially, it's not going to be ideal for Europe to leave essentially the United States and become a partner of China or Russia. That's not going to be ideal for them in any sort of a way. Now, with Russia's situation, well, Europe is backing Ukraine, so they can't become an ally of Russia, even though they still buy Russian oil through India. With China's situation, no, still not, because Europe will then have to go and listen to China instead of listening to the United States. And Europe's best outcome would be not to listen to anybody, but they can't do that because they're not a strong economy to do that. So the chances of essentially Europe or Canada or even Latin American countries deciding to ally off with China instead of United States, it's never going to happen. Because one, the United States has one very strong power card, and that is sanctions. If the United States sanctions any country, then that country is pretty much doomed and on the verge of collapsing if they can't sustain their economy under sanctions. Some countries can do well for themselves under sanctions, and some countries really can't. I'll give you an example of why other countries wouldn't choose China as an ally. They might work with China, but they'll never choose China as an ally over the United States. Here's an example. BRICS. China, Russia, Brazil, South Africa, India. They were all a part of BRICS. Under Biden's administration, a weak America, because it was Biden's administration, these 5 countries decided to come together and build their own payment system, and then decided to build their own token to go up against the United States dollars. When Trump came into power, he said, very simply, to these 5 countries, very simple, if you don't stop now, you will all be imposed with 100% tariffs and even sanctions. Russia decided to come out and say they're not building a token that's going to go against the US dollars and that the US dollars will still be used. Brazil said they're not going to build any token to go up against the US dollars. India said they're not going to build anything to go up against the US dollars. South Africa already got imposed 100% tariffs just as a temporary movement when that first dropped. And then that just leaves China by themselves. And as I said a long time ago, BRICS was all about China becoming number one. BRICS was never about a collective of baskets coming together of currencies and working together, because the world doesn't operate like that. The world is full of greed. And people should realize this by now, that the world is full of greed. Somebody always needs to be in control. Always somebody wants to be in control. It's either going to be China who wants to be in control, or Russia who wants to be in control, or the US who wants to be in control. That's pretty much it. The rest of the countries are pretty much weak, and they can't be in control. The only power plays here is US, Russia, and China. Those are the only power plays in the world. The rest of the countries are too weak to become the loudest voice. The UK is too weak to become the loudest voice. The EU is too weak. Middle Eastern countries are too weak. The rest of the Asian countries are also too weak to become the loudest voice in the world. So the loudest voice remains between 3 countries, and the US has the loudest voice out of those 3 countries. And BRICS was all about China getting to number 1 place and essentially going up against the US dollars. But as I said, as I put it simply, the chances of Europe or any other Western country deciding to become an ally of China and dropping the US, never gonna happen. They will work with they will work with China, they will work with Russia as they do now, even though they pretend they don't work with Russia, but they do. But the chances of dropping the United States as an ally, it's never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. Because BRICS tried to do that. And what happened to BRICS? It fell apart. Double-crossing the US, double-crossing Trump as the leader of the United States, is just the worst thing you could possibly do. So those countries actually choosing to go with China rather than going with the US is never going to happen. But now the CFX is still going to do well for itself in the Asian market space. China's going to be working with Singapore, essentially Hong Kong, which is their playing ground. The same way the UK uses the City of London as their playground as well. But, essentially CFX as a token is going to do good for itself inside the Asian market space. But the chances of those countries dropping the US and going with China, never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's a pipe dream for a lot of people, but it's never going to happen. The same way BRICS was a pipe dream for a lot of people. Everybody, the majority of the crypto space, wanted BRICS to happen. They were cheering for BRICS to happen. They were cheering for Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa. They were cheering for it, standing up against the US dollar, standing up against the United States. They were cheering for it. Did it happen? No. I was saying for the longest time, it's never going to happen. Trump comes into power, says anybody doing a currency to go against the US dollars, 100% tariffs and sanctions. One by one, each country said, we're not creating a token to go against the US dollars. I mean, that's why I say the chances of essentially any of those countries, any Western countries, deciding to leave the US to go with essentially these Asian countries, China or so on, Russia, it's never going to happen. CFX in itself will do very great inside the Asian market space, and even the Middle Eastern market space. CFX will do great for itself. But that scenario, slim chance, never going to happen. Hi, Miles. What's going on with the market and why is it dumped and will it go lower? There's a possibility of the market space going lower. Here's what you need to understand regarding the crypto market space right now. As the market space is tumbling downwards because Bitcoin is following the Nasdaq, and the Nasdaq is not doing too well because of tariff essentially scenarios that are happening that came out yesterday. So Nasdaq doesn't do well, which means Bitcoin doesn't do well, which means the crypto space doesn't do well. If the crypto space now, while this is essentially happening behind the scenes, one by one, every day, new institutions are entering the crypto market space. So it might seem like on the scenes that the crypto market space is doing tremendously bad for itself, and this might be, doomed pretty much. But the reality of it is, and we have a lot of more companies to talk about tonight's live that have entered the crypto market space now, which might seem like the worst possible time for the crypto space in the retail section's eyes, but in the institutional eyes, they're seeing as the best time to enter the crypto market space now. Ironically, 6 months before, Grayscale, JP Morgan's analyst Nicholas, Standard Chartered Bank all said the exact same thing. The next clientele entering the crypto space is going to be institutional clientele. And within those 6 months, that's fast forward to now, Crypto.com, Kraken, Binance, Coinbase, all these major crypto exchanges, they decided to build an alternative platform just for the institutions that are entering the market space. Even the crypto space prepared itself. The crypto companies prepared themselves for institutions entering the market space as their next clientele. And as this tariff situation is happening, as war scenarios are happening on the scene, behind the scenes, these companies are entering one by one. We're going to talk about that on tonight's live as well. But the simplest thing to say, as I said, the tariffs will last 24, 36, 48 hours max. If a country is intelligent enough, that's the longest it should last. And within 24 hours, I've already seen a lot of countries starting to wave the white flag. Because beyond that, they're just going to collapse their own economies, not the United States economy. So tariff wars come to an end, the market's going to pick up, the crypto market's going to pick up. Another thing that's also happening behind the sidelines is rules and regulations. Rules and regulations happen, crypto assets can decouple themselves from Bitcoin's footsteps and provide their utility towards the market space. That's also going to create a bullish sentiment for the crypto space as well. Also, tariffs are putting pressure on the Fed to do rate cuts. Rate cuts tends to make essentially the Nasdaq, the tech stocks do well. Also, it's going to make the crypto market space do well because, as I said, Bitcoin follows the Nasdaq's footsteps. So 3 scenarios are on the board of make the market space go the direction it needs to go. And it's going to go that direction. This year is going to be an incredible market space for the crypto space. This year is going to be incredible for the crypto space. Some people might not see it, or the majority might not see that yet. But if you look at what's happening behind the scenes, a foundation is being built in the United States, the biggest market space in the world for the crypto space, and the rest of the world is following its footsteps, and more institutions are entering the crypto space behind the sidelines day by day. Well, I say behind the sidelines, it's on the news, but nobody's looking at it because everybody's looking at Trump's tariff news, which is very temporary, which is very impactful, and Trump needs to do tariffs, as I said before. But those 3 things, and those things are not that far off in any sort of way. Trump needs Miles to tell CNN and so on. Miles, tell the truth, God bless. Let's go Golden Dragon. I believe that this US is corporations' fault because they move manufacturing out of the US to make profits. It is. Regarding essentially US corporations in fault, it's the politicians' faults. The US, it's not really the corporations' faults. It's, I would say, it's more on the politicians. The US politicians under essentially under Obama's essentially policies, or even under Bush's policies, or even under Sleepy Joe's policies, they let the US manufacturing go to countries like China to do their manufacturers. Those politicians got paid off because they're all broke. Obama was broke when he became president. Bush had some backing from his father. Sleepy Joe was broke when he became the United States president. He made his money as a politician as well. You know how politicians make their money from tips from other companies and corporations under the table. But it was technically the politicians' faults. They got paid off. They opened the doors, let the institutions leave the United States and collapse the manufacturing space inside the United States while they got greedy and more rich. Good day, Miles. Mike, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? But George, I would say it's more of a 50-50 type scenario. The companies did it wrong, so did the politicians at that time. Good evening, Miles at CMF. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Golden Dragon says, no gold card for Miles. You get an automatic citizenship, Miles. You are more American than Democrats. Lol. Let's go. Hi. When will we see crypto bull season? Very soon. Very soon, Johnny. So when will we see the crypto positive market space? Very soon. 3rd quarter, 4th quarter is when we see the market move. Even 2nd quarter, the market is going to do still some movements. the tariff situation is not going to last too long. The longer the tariffs carry on, the more crippled those countries will become. And as I said, some countries are already waving the white flag. A lot of manufacturing is already moving to the United States from all these tariffed countries. So the positivity is already been there. So we're not that far off. And this year will still be incredible. Now, ACH is what we talk about next. ACH, the crypto, essentially the crypto project, LMG Pay, enables fiat on-ramp for HBAR and USDC on Hedera. Singapore-based fiat-to-crypto payments provider LMG Pay has expanded its solutions with support for Hedera's native token. The firm announced the integration of Hedera's HBAR USDC on the blockchain platform April 3rd, noting essentially the on-ramp solutions will allow users to buy crypto assets seamlessly with credit cards and bank transfers via essentially local payment methods. ACH recently unveiled its own blockchain that added an on and off ramp essentially support of movement tokens on the Ledger essentially platform. So if you're somebody that's holding ACH, this is incredible news. If you're somebody that's holding essentially HBAR, this is also good news for you as well. HBAR, USDC, and ACH coming together. It's a great movement. The firm has seen notable growth across crypto payment industries, boasts essentially key partnerships with some of the world's top financial platforms and providers, including Visa, MasterCard, Nuveen, Apple Pay. Supporting essentially Web3 projects, building on the essentially Hedera blockchain, HBAR and USDC are core assets in the ecosystem, which essentially LMG Pay says its fiat crypto solution will help it expand. The initiative will be very crucial to Hedera's growing presence in the real-world assets, tokenizations, and artificial intelligence market spaces. LMG Pay's solution will also boost Hedera's decentralized finance economy. The blockchain network is also seeing notable attention across regulated security tokens and non-fungible tokens, NFTs. Real-world assets, DeFi, and NFTs are major ecosystems within a broader crypto and blockchain technology space. The platform recently unveiled two improvements proposals designed to unlock more growth for Hedera. Other than unlocking new capabilities for HBAR, the proposals add native scheduled transactions to support contracts, to smart contracts, and these means essentially allowing multi-party coordinations with scheduling keys that developers building and deploying advanced digitalized essentially applications. So ACH, USDC, and HBAR have come together. ACH is going to bring some liquidity, essentially, you can say, to HBAR, and also open up HBAR's doors to a lot more financial institutions. It's great for HBAR. This essentially venture is great for ACH, and it's good for USDC as well. Now, as I was saying, more institutions are entering the crypto space than ever before, at times when Liberation Day just happened yesterday. This is why I said on yesterday's live, you need to be asking yourself some questions. If you're somebody inside the crypto space and you're feeling, panicky inside the crypto space, or you're feeling like, this is pretty much it for the crypto space, we're going to go down for a long time inside the crypto space, you need to ask yourself some simple questions, which is, why is a tremendous amount of institutions entering the crypto space now, straight after Liberation Day, or on yesterday's live on Liberation Day? If it's such a bad place right now for the crypto space, if the crypto space is doomed, why is news like this coming out? Wall Street giant or ginormous management firm handling $116 billion to launch new funds on networks of these four altcoins. Wisdom Tree, that's managing $116 billion, has entered the crypto space today. But to a lot of people inside the retail section, the crypto space is doomed. And some people are panicking inside the crypto space. Some people thinking it's over for the crypto space. Why is a ginormous firm like Wisdom Tree with $116 billion entering the crypto space today, a day straight after Liberation Day? These are questions that people should ask themselves when they feel like the crypto space is doomed for. Wisdom Tree, a prominent player inside the exchange-traded fund ETF arena, is making waves by broadening essentially access to its tokenized funds. The streak expansion now encompasses 5 leading Ethereum virtual machine EVM compatible blockchains. Wisdom Tree is about to be expanding into the crypto space into ARB, Base, Avalanche, Ethereum, and Optimism. So OP knows. Reported by essentially Blockworks, this development facilitates through Wisdom Tree's Connect platform marks a significant leap forward in making sophisticated digital asset strategies accessible to institutional investors. Wisdom Tree's move is not just about adding more blockchains, it's about strictly fostering institutional crypto adoption by extending the reach of their tokenized funds to multiple EVM chains. These are effectively lowering the barriers to entry essentially for institutions seeking exposure to digital assets. Previously, assessing these funds might have been limited to specified blockchains, potentially creating essentially technical and operational hurdles. Now, with the compatibility of across 5 major networks, institutions have unprecedented flexibility and choice, considering key benefits of Wisdom Tree's expanded access, increased accessibility. Institutions already operating on ARB, Base, Avalanche, Ethereum, or OP can now seamlessly integrate Wisdom Tree's tokenized funds into their existing infrastructure. Diversification opportunities. With 13 newly launched tokenized funds, Wisdom Tree offers a broad spectrum of investment strategies, allowing institutions to build a well-diversified on-chain portfolios. The next clientele entering the crypto space are institutions, as at the same time Liberation Day, Tariff Day happen, and wars are happening. Institutions are entering the crypto space one by one. Streamline operations. The Connect platform simplifies the process of accessing and managing these tokenized funds, reducing complexities and enhancing operational efficiencies for institutional clients. Enhanced liquidity across essentially multiple EVM chains can potentially contribute to a greater liquidity for these tokenized funds as they become available to a wider pool of investors. Wisdom Tree's expansion of tokenized funds access across 5 EVM chains is a significant step towards mainstream institutional crypto adoption. By leveraging the power of blockchain technology and focusing on accessibility, diversification, and operational efficiencies, Wisdom Tree is empowering institutions to explore the vast potential of digital assets now. Out of all times, Wisdom Tree is making essentially institutions come towards the crypto space even more now. The second day after Liberation Day, 24 hours after Liberation Day. Why is Wisdom Tree doing this 24 hours after Liberation Day? Because the crypto space is not doomed. It's the institutions that are coming inside the crypto space, and at the exact same time, tariffs are happening or wars are happening, while institutions are sneaking their way into the crypto space. This move not only benefits Wisdom Tree and its clients, but also contributes to the overall maturation and the growth of the crypto market space. As the lines between traditional finance and decentralized finance continue to blur, expect to see more innovative solutions like tokenized funds emerge, paving the way for more inexclusive and efficient financial future. So as you can see, and by the way, they're not the only institutions. I've been revealing institutions for the past week entering the crypto space one by one. And we have more institutions to go through on tonight's live that are entering the crypto space as well. Wisdom Tree was one of them, where they've expanded their range for institutions today, out of all days. The US House Committee is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about the US House Committee, the order that's came out, the bill that's just came out for the crypto space, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. Be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go to the comment section first, and then we go straight into the next news, which is regarding the U.S. House Committee of what they talked about, essentially what bill they've essentially decided to pass through. So let's see where we were at. We were at here. Alex, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Johnny says, when is the second quarter? We're in the second quarter, Johnny. Greetings, Miles and CMF. Ray, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Because of your lives, I think most of the CMF holds HBAR and ACH. Let's go, Stormy. Marcelo says, hey, can you tell me if it's a good idea to invest into Floyd coin? Baddie yapping about crypto, and it's now U.S. House Committee approves an anti-CBDC surveillance bill. The U.S. House Financial Services Committee has passed the anti-CBDC, which House Majority Whip, essentially Tom Hemmer, reintroduced. So, in the U.S. House Committee today, they talked about essentially CBDCs. They banned not CBDCs, but a feature of CBDCs inside the United States. But it still leaves the door open to CBDCs, and I'll tell you why. So, the U.S. House Financial Services Committee today passed essentially the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act, which is HR 1919, which the House Majority Whip Tom Hammer reintroduced. The law seeks to stop the US government from using central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, for monetary policies. It also aims to stop Federal Reserve banks from offering services directly to individuals. Tom Hammer believes that this bill will protect financial privacy and individual freedom from potential government essentially surveillance. So you might be thinking to yourself, this is an anti-CBDC bill. It's been passed by the House Committee that the United States government is not allowed to make CBDCs. It's 50% true. So the bill has sparked a debate between those concerns about privacy and government surveillance, and those who see essentially CBDCs as a vital for the future of payments. So there are people inside the US government that are seeing it as a vital movement for CBDCs to happen inside the United States. The bill passed the voting session essentially with 27 votes in favor and 22 against Tom Hammer. The bill sponsor said it ensures that American people, not government agencies, make digital currency decisions. So the bill regarding CBDCs that essentially was passed was one for privacy scenarios, but mostly it was about the government of the United States is not allowed to make CBDCs. That leaves room for companies. Also, when they said in the bill regarding that, Tom Hammer said the bill sponsor said it ensures that the American people, not the government agency, can make digital currency decisions. So that leaves the room for private or public companies to build CBDCs for the United States. But who isn't allowed to build CBDCs for the United States is the Fed. The Fed is not allowed to build CBDCs for the United States, but somebody else is allowed to build CBDCs for the United States. I think you can all take a guess who is allowed, because the bill doesn't state nobody's allowed. The bill doesn't state, the anti-CBDC bill that was just passed inside the United States, it doesn't say nobody's allowed to build it. It says the government is not allowed to build it, which leaves room for somebody else to build CBDCs for the United States. Central bank digital currencies are digital forms of money issued by a country's central banks. Its supporters say CBDCs could make payments faster, cheaper, and more efficient. Tom Hammer called CBDCs government-controlled programmable money, which is what they are. He expressed concerns that CBDCs could be used to monitor people's transactions and control their spendings, which is true. The bill aims to prevent this by keeping financial freedom intact. The committee also passed another bill called the Stablecoin Transparency and Accountability for a Better Ledger Economy. This bill aims to create rules for stablecoins linked to the US dollar, which is meant to help stablecoins grow safely and transparently. This is where essentially Tether is going to struggle badly. So another bill that was passed by the House Committee essentially is the Stablecoin Transparency and Accountability Act, which is something on the lines of, if anyone or any company wants to build a US dollar equivalent stablecoin that's pegged to US dollars, they need to abide by the United States laws. So let's just say Tether doesn't abide by the United States laws. For example, the same way Tether, USDT didn't abide by the EU's laws under the MiCA regulations, which is why USDT is banned in the EU. So it's a genuine thing. So let's just say the United States says, if you are a US dollars stable coin, you're not allowed to do this, this, and this. And Tether isn't able to abide. One of them is going to be transparency, which Tether, in my own personal preference, not financial advice in any sort of a way, it struggles to essentially show transparency. There's always been a question of, does Tether really have the backings it says it has? And when the EU said to Tether, you need to hold 60% of assets in EU banks for you to operate as a stablecoin, Tether rejected that idea. Said, we're not going to hold our assets in your EU banks. But the EU was doing that as a safety rail, just in case Tether decouples itself and takes down the EU economy. And that the EU at least has 60% of Tether's assets in EU banks if that ever happens, which means EU companies don't struggle. At least they can have some money, some liquidity there. So if Tether gets banned from the United States, that means Tether is not allowed to operate. USDT is not allowed to operate in any jurisdiction to sell USDT in. So you know how USDT has been able to essentially be in, the UK, in Middle Eastern countries, and Asian countries. It's expanded itself to Latin American countries. If Tether gets banned from the United States, Tether is not allowed to operate in any country. USDT is not allowed to operate in any country if that happens. With this new Transparency Act that's been passed by essentially the United States. This is where it's leading to. And it was also one of the talking points the man said, Tom Hemmer. If anybody saw essentially the US House Committee, Tom Hemmer said, this is basically so that if anybody's operating as a US dollars, even outside the United States, isn't allowed to operate. Because they're operating as a US dollars, we are the US, we dictate how the US dollars moves, not some private company. Many countries around the world are exploring CBDCs. And the Atlantic Council recently reported that 134 countries, representing 98% of the global GDP, are considering or developing the program. Some of these countries are already in advanced stages of planning. And in contrast, the US and Norway are taking a more careful approach. President Donald Trump's executive order issued in January protects citizens from the risk of CBDCs, and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent shared the same sentiment. They said that they do not see a need for a CBDC inside the United States as of now. They didn't say in general. They said in the moment, right now, the United States doesn't need a CBDC in our opinion. So again, it's not fully banned. The bill for CBDCs is that the government is not allowed to build it. So the Fed is essentially not allowed to build a CBDC. But that leaves room for companies to build CBDCs for the United States. One of them essentially could be Ripple. The second thing essentially is that the United States, in terms of Scott Bessent or the Fed chairman, didn't say, they're banning CBDCs forever inside the United States either. They said they don't see it at the moment. Some lawmakers argue that banning CBDCs inside the United States could cause the US to fall behind in the global economy. As I shared right now from the Atlantic Council report, or the International Monetary Fund report, or the Bank of International Settlements report, 98% of centralized banks are in CBDCs. 134 countries are in CBDCs, some at a very advanced stages, some in research stages, some in testing stages, some in implementation stages, and so on. And that the US could fall behind if it doesn't get involved in CBDCs. And they believe that banning CBDCs inside the United States would essentially hurt the US dollar's global position and prevent the country from developing new payment systems. Meanwhile, the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum, OMFIF Future of Payments 2024 survey revealed that central banks are shifting to instant payment systems as well. Just want to say, the relationship that Ripple has with Trump, and people should be seeing that right now, because as I said previously, XRP was a token that was being sued by the SEC while still standing strong in the top 10. Not many projects could have done, and actually to be fair, no project could have done that, being sued by the SEC, still standing in the top 10. But what I want to say is, I said a while ago, there's a reason why XRP was mentioned first by Trump in his big announcement of America's stockpile. There was a reason why he didn't say Bitcoin and Ethereum first. There's a reason why he said XRP first. There's a reason why we see essentially Ripple having back-to-back dinners with Trump. There's a reason why there was a word used that the meaning of that word on one of the pictures, essentially from Stewart, with a picture with Donald Trump and Brad standing on the other side, and the word's meaning was it's a done deal. If the Fed can't create CBDCs, that leaves room for private and public companies to create CBDCs. Also, there's a reason why Ripple is very close with a lot of Republican politicians, because Ripple's the one that's funding their campaigns, and still is, as I revealed yesterday. The amount of Republicans that are being funded by Ripple is tremendous. But that's just how you play the game. If you want to open up doors, politicians are the way to do it. Because those same politicians were being paid off by other people to sue, essentially put pressure on the SEC, Gary Gensler, to essentially go after Ripple. There was a movement there where they didn't want Ripple to change the entire financial system. Because, as I said previously, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Gary Gensler didn't wake up one day and decide to sue Ripple for no apparent reason. Why they let every type of fraud happen inside the crypto space and just decided to sue Ripple. And Ripple realized how the game is played, and the game is with politicians. Hence why a tremendous list of politicians are behind Ripple now. And Ripple has a very close relationship with Donald Trump. Very close relationship with Donald Trump. Obviously, Bitcoin maxis are fuming about that, but who cares about them? Now, what we're going to talk about next is Deutsche Bank. But before we talk about Deutsche Bank, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions you may have or read out your statements. So let's just go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into Deutsche Bank news, which is relevant to the crypto space. Ray, thank you so much for the $10 donation, brother. Let's go CMF. Let's go, Ray. Thank you so much for $10 donations. Going straight towards CMF hedge fund. Absolutely amazing, bro. Thank you so much. Happy Pisces. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Shelly says they will find a way to get around it. Regarding CBDCs, yes, 100%. Greetings, Miles CMF. Let's go, Ray. CBDCs will just be essentially disguised as something else. I agree 100%. Essentially what Shelly has said. Will they might end the Fed yet at some stage? It's a possibility. I agree 100%. Ray says maybe it will be each state. I heard commercial today, Austin advertising for a Texas Bitcoin. Just for us Texans, they said it was safe and mined only here. Was literally on the radio too. That's interesting. Well, thank you for the update, Ray. I'll be honest. Love how they said the Federal Reserve, which is not the Federal and not the Reserve, won't be able to be bamboos we the people anymore. They must be big man. Yeah, 100%. 100%, Ray. Again, honestly, Ray, thanks so much for a $10 donation. Absolutely amazing. Miles, explain, please, what happens when we decouple from Bitcoin. Will the Dow Jones, all the S&P 500, etc. markets follow Bitcoin or the crypto market as its source? Yes, the stock market will follow. Tech stock will follow the crypto markets. Yes, 100%. So once the decoupling happens, so rules and regulations come into play this year and next year and the years as we go ahead. But the rules and regulations that are coming in this year is all stablecoin related and bank related, which is exactly what we need in terms of rules and regulations for utility financial crypto projects to do well for themselves, incredibly well for themselves. So regulations happen and the decoupling happens from Bitcoin, XRP, XLM, XDC, Solana, AVAX, the list goes on. The multitude of crypto assets decoupling themselves from Bitcoin and going their separate paths based on the contracts they made a long time ago, the licenses they acquired, the businesses they required, the partnerships they made, the political partnerships they made, and so on. And because of rules and regulations, now there's no more gray areas and they can operate with banks and institutions with no difficulty whatsoever. So tech stocks will follow the crypto footsteps. So if the crypto market does well due to essentially regulations and utility, then tech stocks will follow the crypto markets without a doubt. The rest of the stock market will have some positivity for itself as well, but tech stocks will do the best in terms of the S&P 500 and Dow Jones as well. But the tech stocks will do the best out of essentially the rest of the market space in terms of the stock market. But they will do also quite well for themselves, but tech will do very well. Now, Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank essentially signals imminent US dollar, essentially confidence crisis. Deutsche Bank has came out with, and by the way, Deutsche Bank is a humongous bank. They came out with a perspective on the market space. They've came out with a perspective on the US dollars as well. So Deutsche Bank, a financial titan, has just essentially sounded the alarm bells, warning of a possible confidence crisis in the mighty US dollar. For those of us essentially navigating the volatile yet exciting crypto landscapes, understanding these traditional market shifts is crucial. What exactly is a dollar confidence crisis that essentially Deutsche Bank is referring to? Deutsche Bank, in simple terms, said it's when global investors and institutions start losing faith in the US dollars as a stable store of value and a reliable essential reserve currency. This isn't just about essentially exchange rates and fluctuating. It's a fundamental shift in perception that can have a far-reaching consequences across the entire global economy. Think of it like this. If a foundation of a building, the dollar, starts to crack, everything built upon it feels a strain. In confidence, essentially, crisis isn't a sudden event, but rather a gradual erosion of trust. It manifests into several ways. Decreased demand for the US dollars dominate essentially assets. Foreign investors might start selling off their US Treasury bonds and other dollar assets, seeking safer or more lucrative alternatives. Weakening dollar exchange rates. As demand falls, the dollar's essentially value against other currencies could decline significantly. Now, this is just a perspective they have. It's nothing that's happening right now in any sort of way, but it's a perspective Deutsche Bank has. Increased volatility in financial markets, uncertainty about the dollar's future can trigger turbulence in the stock markets, bond markets, and commodities markets. Shift towards alternative currencies. Nations and businesses might explore using other currencies for trade and reserves, potentially including digital currencies. This isn't just a theoretical doomsday talk. His history is essentially filled essentially with examples of currency crises that have reshaped economies and geopolitical landscapes. Remember the Asian financial crisis in the late 1990s, or the more recent currency turmoil in various emerging markets. While the US dollar's position is unique, no currency is essentially immune to losing confidence in underlying economic fundamentals and policy decisions essentially faultless. Now, Deutsche Bank's warning is a stark reminder that global financial landscapes is consistently evolving, and the dominance of any single currency is not guaranteed forever. For the crypto world, this could be a watershed moment, a test of its resilience and a potential catalyst for a wider adoption. It's time to pay attention, stay informed, and position ourselves strictly for whatever the future holds. Deutsche Bank has basically came out in the most simplest way, has said on their end quote, this is the time to pay attention, stay informed, and position ourselves for the market space that we're about to be entering into. In their eyes, it doesn't seem like essentially they're going to be immune. Essentially, the US dollar is not going to be immune forever. And that would have been true on the Biden's administration. But for now, the US dollar is even going digital. It's going to become the number one stablecoin. It already is. USDT is the US dollars in a digital form. Every time, essentially, USDT prints 1 billion tokens, USDT is backing that 1 billion tokens with essentially fiat US dollars or US bonds, for example, which strengthens the US dollar at the same time. Same goes with USDC, same goes with any stablecoin. So the argument of when people essentially make, when they talk about the US dollars getting weakened in some sort of a manner, well, stablecoins, for them to operate, they need to have fiat, actual fiat US dollars backing it. They need to have actual, essentially, US bonds backing it. Now, every time USDT, Tether, Circle, USDC, Ripple, RLUSD, or any other stablecoin out there decides to print more of their stablecoin, Tether decides to print essentially 1 billion USDT, which they recently did. When markets create uncertainty times, Tether prints more tokens. And so do other essentially stablecoins out there as well, because people tend to sell their assets and go into stablecoins, which means they will need more stablecoins in the market space, which means these stablecoin companies will essentially print more stablecoins to add towards the market space. But every time they print more stablecoins, to back that stablecoin, they have to buy fiat US dollars, they have to buy US bonds, which strengthens the US dollars every time they do that. And not enough people talk about that inside the crypto space. But everybody talks about how the US dollars is going to go to zero. But there are evidence of why it's not going to zero. It's because even in a digital form, US dollars, they're backing it with fiat. They're backing with US bonds. You can go to Ripple's own website. A lot of people might say, no, Ripple doesn't buy US bonds. Ripple doesn't buy fiat US dollars. USDT doesn't buy fiat US dollars or US bonds. And USDC doesn't do that either. But the reality of it is they do. And you can go to their own websites and see what backs their stablecoins. It's US bonds. Every time they buy US bonds, does US dollars get strengthened. But it's an interesting perspective coming out from Deutsche Bank. But the last part from Deutsche Bank, talking about how this is the time to pay attention towards the market space, 100% true. The part where it says stay informed, 100% true. And the part where it says position yourselves correctly is also true. Institutions are entering the market space, rules and regulations are being built while everybody's focused on tariffs, which are temporary, or war, which are temporary. And institutions are entering quietly one by one. They're sneaking their way into it. Now, on yesterday's live, the day before, I revealed on this live that South Korea is about to be opening its doors to its institutions, because institutions are the next clientele. And 3,000, I revealed 2 nights ago on this live, 3,500 essentially institutions from South Korea are about to be entering the crypto market space. 3,500 institutions. Here's something you should know as well. South Korea not only is opening its doors to institutions, but is also opening their doors to foreign investors. But they're not opening their doors to their traditional market space to foreign investors. No, they're opening their crypto markets up to foreign investors also. South Korea weighs in on opening crypto markets to foreign investors. South Korea may soon allow foreign investors to access its domestic cryptocurrency market space, but only if local exchanges prove capable of handling anti-money laundering such as AML duties, according to the country's top financial regulators. Speaking at a seminar held at the National Assembly, Kim Sung-jun, the head of Virtual Asset Division at the Financial Services Commission, FSC, which is their equivalent of the SEC, said he supports the idea of letting global investors trade on Korean platforms. He said, I agree with the direction, Kim said. According to local media outlets, Boltlo from essentially South Korea, adding that conditions could change depending on how well exchanges meet their AML standards. Currently, foreign participation in South Korean markets is blocked by strict capital controls and know your customers essentially KYC rules. Under current laws, Korean users must verify their identity with real name bank accounts issued by domestic banks to trade crypto with fiat. These rules essentially effectively prevent non-residents from accessing Korean exchanges, but Korea is about to open their crypto market space up to the rest of the world. But with President Trump's administration leading a more crypto-friendly shift in the US policy, Seoul, the capital of South Korea, appears to be reconsidering its long-standing restrictions. Do you see what I said a long time ago? I said whatever steps Trump takes inside the crypto space, other countries will follow in suit, is exactly what's happening right now. South Korea was restricting access to its crypto market space to institutions and to other foreign investors, and said the crypto market space is only for us, and we're going to keep it small and compact, and create some rules and regulations, a lot of rules and regulations, and so on. South Korea said, well, we're doing this, but the US has this friendly approach to crypto. Their crypto market space is growing. They're building a foundation. They're bringing rules and regulations. They're getting rid of lawsuits. And we're over here in South Korea restricting our market space, making it very tight and small, not allowing our own institutions into the market space or even foreign investors. So they came to the conclusion that they need to follow Trump's footsteps when it comes to crypto market space. And a lot of countries are doing this, following Trump's footsteps. And this is going to add liquidity to the market space. Not only are they letting their own institutions, 3,500 institutions from South Korea, into the market space, but they're going to open up their doors to foreign investors. Seoul appears to be reconsidering its long-standing restrictions. Analysts believe South Korea wants to stay competitive as a global industry expands. The more countries that aim for the capital of cryptocurrencies, the more countries that aim to become the capital of cryptocurrencies, the better it is for us. More countries do that, more liquidity comes inside the market space. Opening the markets could also eliminate the so-called kimchi premium, a recurring price gap between Korean and global crypto markets due to capital controls and limiting essentially foreign liquidity. The premium occurs because South Korea's crypto market is largely isolated from foreign investors due to regulatory restrictions. And arbitrary traders essentially who attempt to buy Bitcoin at lower prices on foreign exchanges and sell it domestically may face capital controls, limiting their ability to close the gap. Still, regulators are cautious, and the FSC believes that local exchanges are not yet equipped to handle the compliance burdens required for foreign access. A key concern is their ability to essentially enforce their international AML measures, but they're working on it to open that door. South Korea implemented the travel rule in 2022, requiring exchanges to collect and store essentially sender and the receiver's information for transactions over essentially $680. South major Korean essentially exchanges have recently moved to apply the rule even below that threshold. Earlier this year, Upbit, the country's largest crypto exchange, was fined by the Financial Intelligence Unit (FIU) for transaction involving unregistered foreign platforms. A Seoul court also later paused the enforcement of the penalties pending further review. Upbit has faced increasing scrutiny over the market dominance it has over there. During a parliamentary order back in October 2024, lawmakers essentially raised concerns about the anti-monopoly essentially violations, prompting the Financial Services Commission (FSC) to essentially launch an investigation. The FIU later essentially accused Upbit of violating Know Your Customer (KYC) regulations, identifying at least 500,000 compliance breaches. It also found that exchanges handled around 45,000 transactions was unregistered, essentially with crypto exchanges, which officials claim violated their act of essentially reporting and using specified financial transactional information. And despite the regulatory friction, South Korea remains one of the most active crypto markets out there. Upbit alone cleared $85 billion in monthly trading volume in March, with the market known for their high altcoin activity. So if you think to yourself, maybe South Korea is a small market space and it's not going to really add some sort of liquidity to the crypto space, well, South Korea did 85 billion in 1 month in the crypto space in terms of volume, which is tremendous. 85 billion in 1 month South Korea did for the crypto space from their own South Korean crypto exchanges, which are now going to open their doors up to foreign essentially exchanges, to foreign investors. And by the way, the number one token that's purchased in South Korea is XRP. The number one token purchased by retail or institutions in South Korea is XRP. Where XRP in some cases even sold more tokens, more people bought XRP than they would of Bitcoin and Ethereum combined together. MicroStrategy is what we're going to talk about next. Moving off South Korea. And again, South Korea is doing this now. While tariffs are happening, while war is happening, South Korea is opening up its doors to foreign institutional investors and retail section investors. Wouldn't that be the worst time? This is why I'm saying this is not all doom and essentially it's not all doomed for the crypto space, and it's not all doom and gloom for the crypto space in any sort of a way. And as you can tell, more institutions enter the market space. South Korea is opening its doors to essentially the retail section and to institutions right now during tariff season. Tariffs were introduced yesterday, and they're doing this announcement today. We even talked about essentially Wisdom Tree. We've got more news to go through on tonight's live as well regarding more institutions opening their doors up to the crypto space at this particular time and moment. MicroStrategy is who we're going to talk about next. MicroStrategy, who is very well known to buying Bitcoin no matter what the price is. MicroStrategy reserves decisions to buy more Bitcoin, but plans to raise capital in April. So, Strategy, formerly known as essentially MicroStrategy, has revealed its decision to buy Bitcoin this week. Two sources within the company confirmed to London Insider today that earlier this week, London Insider reported that MicroStrategy was planning to purchase Bitcoin again this week, marking essentially the third consecutive week of them adding to their Bitcoin treasury. However, MicroStrategy has not decided to now decided not to add essentially to its Bitcoin stash this week for undisclosed reasons. But the firm headed by Michael Saylor is planning to raise more funds to buy more Bitcoin later in April, the sources added. London's Insider exclusively reported that MicroStrategy had purchased more Bitcoin that week and would essentially announce the details of their 31st March, which they did. Last Monday, the company announced that it had purchased 22,048 Bitcoins for about $1.92 billion, capitalizing on its recent price drop. MicroStrategy bought essentially last month roughly about $1.92 billion over Bitcoin. The acquisition was made around an average price of $86,969 per Bitcoin, further solidifying Strategy's position as the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin. On March 31st, Bitcoin advocate Michael Saylor's company Strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy, announced the acquisition of 22,048 Bitcoins valued at a certain amount. The company stated that the purchase was funded through proceeds from its common MSTR, essentially at the market ATM offering, as well as their preferred STRK and STRF ATM stock sales. During essentially the pre-markets, the STR and the STRK and the STRF stocks were trading at $84 and $92, and Bitcoin's holding companies are also growing their acquisitions. The latest Bitcoin acquisitions occurred between March 24th and March 30th of just came out. The data has just came out, which essentially shows that Bitcoin costing the companies an average of $86,969 as of March 30th. Strategy now holds roughly about 528,185 Bitcoins, worth around $35.63 billion is what the amount of essentially Bitcoin MicroStrategy holds right now, with an average purchase price of $67,458 per Bitcoin. So MicroStrategy is getting ready to purchase a tremendous amount of more Bitcoin, but also Mara Holdings filed for an 8K report with the US Securities Exchange Commission outlining its partnership with essentially investment firms such as Barclays Capital, BMO Capital Markets, and Cantor Fitzgerald and Co. The company plans to also sell common stocks and so on. And with both Strategy and essentially Mara Holdings doubling down on their Bitcoin acquisitions, corporate interest in leading cryptocurrencies continues to grow. Major banks, Barclays is a humongous bank, decided to back these two companies to help them purchase more Bitcoin. Again, if it's a bad time for the crypto space, why is Barclays getting involved and adding more money to the pot? Because it's not a bad time for the crypto space, it's a great time for institutions, which is why they're entering in one by one. Now, moving off essentially Barclays Bank and Mara Holdings and essentially MicroStrategy to Brazil, or specifically Brazil's largest bank. So, Brazil's largest bank, the Itaú Unibank, essentially, is preparing to launch its own stablecoin. Here's the details. Brazil's largest bank by assets is exploring whether to launch its own stablecoin as regulatory discussions develop and US financial institutions gradually enter the sector. So Brazil is thinking about launching a stablecoin because the United States is about to be passing stablecoin regulations. The bank's decision will depend on regulatory developments in Brazil and the success of stablecoin offerings by the US financial institutions. The head of digital assets said the decision could depend on how American institutions proceed with their stablecoin offerings. The only footsteps Brazil is going to take inside the crypto space is following the exact footsteps America takes towards the crypto space. Just like South Korea, just like Hong Kong is taking the same footsteps as the United States. Every country on this planet is right now looking at, essentially in terms of the crypto space, they're looking at Trump's next footsteps or Trump's administration's next footsteps. Stablecoins have always been on essentially the largest bank of Brazil's radar. They said, we cannot ignore the power of blockchain to process transactions automatically, he said. For now, stablecoins remain a hot topic. The surge in interest in stablecoins essentially comes on the heels of political shift inside the United States, where lawmakers rejected the central bank digital currency CBDCs in favor of promoting private stablecoins alternatives to preserve the dollar dominance. In Brazil, regulators are essentially conducting a public consultation focused on how stablecoins can fit into the current financial systems. And also, the bank said it is waiting to see what the rules of the central bank will set before moving forward on any internal projects. And they also expressed that the concerns about the proposed self-custody essentially ban in Brazil draft in terms of stablecoin rules. It's worth noting that Brazil prohibits large pension funds from investing in cryptocurrencies, which I revealed a few nights ago on this live as well. But again, Brazil has just came forward and admitted they're following America's footsteps inside of this crypto space. Now, as I said to you, one by one, institutions are entering the crypto space. At the exact same time, a lot of people think the crypto space must be doomed because of Trump's tariffs. But what people need to understand, for the millionth time, honestly, is that this is not doom and gloom for the crypto space, and that tariffs are temporary, What's happening behind the sidelines is a foundation, rules and regulations, and institutions are entering the crypto space. Here's another major institution. So I talked about Wisdom Tree with $116 billion expanding into the crypto space tonight. Essentially, today they revealed it. Here's another one. A massive American institution, another massive American institution, BNY Mellon, transforms tokenized funds with BlackRock. In a groundbreaking move that signals a major leap forward for digital asset management, Bank of New York, BNY Mellon, a titan in the financial world, has now essentially just unveiled a cutting-edge blockchain-based accounting tool. This isn't just another tech upgrade, it's a fundamental shift in how tokenized funds are handled, promising to bring unprecedented transparency and efficiency to the space. Imagine trying to track the value of traditional investment funds. It involves essentially spreadsheets, manual updates, and often time lag before you get the real picture. Now, picture tokenized funds, digital representations of assets on the blockchain, and the need for real-time accurate valuations becomes even more critical. This is where essentially BNY Mellon's new tool steps in. It's designed to automatically post real-time net asset values, NAV in other words, data directly onto the blockchain. Think of it as a super efficient, always-on ledger for funds and values. Here's essentially a breakdown of what they're trying to do with this tool. Real-time NAV updates. No more waiting for end-of-the-day reports. The NAV data, as designed by BNY Mellon for the blockchain space, update on the blockchain as it changes, providing investors with an immediate and accurate view of their funds and their performances. Transparency and trust. Blockchain technology inherently brings transparency by posting NAV data on the blockchain. BNY Mellon is enhancing their trust and accessibility in the management of tokenized funds. Every transaction and valuation is recorded essentially immediately. You should honestly, these are questions that people should be asking themselves. If the crypto space is doomed, why is BNY Mellon introducing this feature now towards the blockchain space, today, especially straight after Liberation Day? Efficiency gains. Automating the NAV, calculations and reporting process, reduce manual work, minimizing errors, and speed operations. This efficiency is crucial for fast-paced world of digital assets and focus on institutional adoption. BNY Mellon, a name essentially known inside the institutional finance sector, entering deeper into the crypto space, signals a growing acceptance of integration of digital assets into mainstream financial systems. It's a very, very big deal that BNY Mellon, a ginormous bank, entering the crypto space. Very big deal. And they're doing it now, today, out of all days. This launch is not happening in isolation. It's a part of BNY Mellon's broader strict push into the realm of BNY Mellon crypto. BNY Mellon crypto is what they're also introducing essentially today, and in terms of digital assets. For financial institutions of BNY Mellon's essentially stature to actively embrace blockchain and crypto solutions, it speaks volumes about the direction the industry is heading right now. Several factors are likely driving this increased focus. Client demand. Institutional investors are increasingly interested in gaining exposure to digital assets. Now, while Liberation Day happened, tariffs are happening, wars are happening, and people are very focused on that. And some people are saying crypto is being ruined by Trump. Sidelines, what's actually happening is rules and regulations, SEC dropping cases, and institutions are more than ever interested in entering into the crypto space right now, which was announced about 6 months ago. They are the next clientele. Institutional investors are increasingly interested in gaining exposure to digital assets. BNY Mellon is responding to this demand by providing necessary infrastructure and services for institutions to enter the crypto space. Technology advancements. Blockchain technology has matured to a point where it's becoming practical and scalable for enterprise-level applications and finance. And regulatory clarity. Potentially, while regulatory landscapes for crypto remains evolving, there's a growing expectation of clearer guidelines heading our way. Institutions know that there are more guidelines, regulations, clearer guidelines entering the crypto space, so there's no more gray areas as we go along. That's why institutions are entering faster than ever before right now. Particularly in the US, which encourages established players like BNY Mellon to invest further. Competitive edge. In a rapidly changing financial landscape, embracing innovation is crucial for staying competitive. BNY Mellon likely sees digital assets as a key area for future growth and leadership. So, Wisdom Tree, with $116 billion worth of assets, entering the crypto space, expanding into the crypto space today with their announcement. BNY Mellon, entered ginormous bank, massive titan in the financial sector. BNY Mellon can move mountains if it wanted to inside the financial sector. And is offering a service to institutions to enter the crypto space now, announced today out of all days. There's a reason for all that. It's because genuinely the crypto space is not doomed in any sort of a way. Trump is not ruining the crypto space. He's actually helping the crypto space. But people are too focused on what's happening on the scene rather than what's happening behind the scene. Moving on of essentially BNY Mellon to pro-crypto SEC chair nominee Paul Atkins. Advances after a narrow Senate committee vote. Paul Atkins also, who is going to become the SEC chairman, who's going to replace the acting chairman Mark from the SEC, who, by the way, has done tremendous work. Mark has, like a domino effect, got rid of cases, crypto cases, one by one from the SEC. But nevertheless, Paul Atkins has just advanced forward with a narrow Senate committee vote. Paul Atkins, President Trump's nominee for the chairman of the SEC, in a key step towards his confirmation. The Senate Banking Committee approved the nominee in a 13-11 vote in favor of Atkins, sending him to the floor of the Senate confirmation. The committee vote was divided along essentially party lines, with all Democrats voting against the nomination. However, it may be essentially ratified by the entire Senate, though it will pass by a slim margin since Atkins has more support on this side. Notably, the majority of the Democrats were not present in the committee on April 3rd, and essentially Senator Elizabeth Warren voted on behalf of the absent members. The nomination comes after just various essentially chairpersons. Gary Gensler resigned, obviously, from his position in January 20th. Before the voting, the deputy chairman of the committee, Senator Tom Scott, stated that the confirmation of Atkins may bring the commission much-needed clarity for digital assets. Mark, the acting chairman of the SEC, has done tremendous work since Gary Gensler has left, and brought 7 enforcement actions against major firms operating digital asset space complete to a halt and got rid of them. Atkins previously served as the commissioner of the SEC during the George W. Bush administration from 2002 to 2008. Later founded Patternock Global Partners, an independent financial services consultancy firm. In an interview in 2023, Paul Atkins cited that the US regulations as having played a role in the collapse of FTX. He noted that because there were no set and friendly guidelines regarding these innovative financial platforms, they were posed some form of essentially difficulty in regulations. The Senate Banking Committee also endorsed 3 other nominations in addition to Atkins. Yes and no. Regarding FTX, it wasn't just essentially the part where regulations didn't exist because of Gary Gensler. It was also because Sam Beckman was using people's money to buy yachts and throwing upside down pineapple parties in a Bahamas penthouse. So there are many reasons why FTX collapsed. It wasn't just regulations, but obviously we need regulations. They need to be there, and Paul Atkins understands that. But also, most importantly, Paul Atkins just got through the next step to becoming the SEC chairman. A lot of good things are happening behind the scenes, but people are very focused on essentially tariffs and essentially the war scenarios, and some people are in panic mode because of that. Some people think the crypto space is not going to go to a run, but it is. Now, talking about the SEC, moving on to Ripple. RLUSD, Ripple's stablecoin, is doing quite well for itself. Ripple's stablecoin is doing actually tremendously well for itself. So the new numbers are in. Ripple's RLUSD got listed on Kraken about 24 hours before. So if you go back 24 hours, the announcement came that Ripple's RLUSD token is listed on Kraken. So here is the update on that. 24 hours after, fast forward to now. Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin sees substantial volume increase after securing a major US exchange listing with trading activity exceeding $80 million in 24 hours. The Ripple RLUSD, essentially stablecoin, has experienced a remarkable surge in trading activity, with its volume jumping 41% in just 24 hours. Ripple's RLUSD token has jumped 41% in 24 hours. The significant uptick follows a series of strict developments for the San Francisco-based cryptocurrency company, relatively new stablecoin offering. RLUSD's trading volume has crossed the $80 million threshold, marking a substantial 41% increase in just one day. This volume spike is particularly noteworthy when compared to the stablecoin's current market capitalization of just under $300 million, resulting in an unusual high volume to market cap ratio of approximately 27%. Financial analysts typically consider such an elevated ratio as an indicator of heightened market interest and trading activity surrounding an asset, which means a lot of people are interested in RLUSD right now, most of them being institutional players as well. In the case of RLUSD, this surge appears to be directly connected to recent developments of Ripple's expanding ecosystem. But it also goes more than that, in my opinion. It also goes on the fact that people trust RLUSD. You see, when it comes to USDT, most people don't trust it because they're not sure what's backing it. And USDT being banned from the EU is not a great image for themselves. USDC has depegged once during the whole, Silicon Bank situation. So there's that situation where USDC has depegged once. USDT has difficulty with transparency. There was a need inside the market space for a trusted US dollars stablecoin, because USDC depegged and USDC has difficulty with transparency. So there was actually room inside the market space for one stablecoin to essentially come through it. And RLUSD is doing it. The primary catalyst behind this dramatic volume increase appears to be RLUSD's recent listings in Kraken, one of the United States' largest and most established cryptocurrency exchanges. This represents a significant milestone for Ripple stablecoin, as this usage point. Bitstamp was the only globally recognized centralized exchange offering RLUSD pairs, with Kraken now joining the list of exchanges supporting RLUSD. The stablecoin has gained access to substantially larger pools of traders and investors. This expanded market access appears to have immediately translated into enhanced trading activity, contributing to significantly 41% volume increase. A secondary factor potentially influencing RLUSD surging volume is Ripple's regular monthly release of 1 billion XRP tokens. This scheduled token disruption, designed to stabilize the XRP market, occurred recently and may indirectly boosted RLUSD's trading activity. As Ripple continues to integrate RLUSD into its suite of cross-border payment solutions, there appears to be a growing synergy between the company's various financial products. The interconnectedness essentially suggests that the events affecting one of the aspects of Ripple's ecosystem, such as XRP's release, may be increasing this matter. Despite its impressive recent performance, RLUSD remains a relatively newcomer in the highly competitive stablecoin segment, with established players like USDT and USDC still dominating the market space. However, Ripple's strong reputation in cross-border payment sectors provides RLUSD with a unique advantage that could accelerate its adoptions. The company's existing relationship with financial institutions worldwide may help its position even further for RLUSD to be a preferred stablecoin for their international transfers and settlements, because they trust RLUSD. Companies around the world and people around the world trust RLUSD. Even if you're somebody that hates Ripple, if you hate XRP, you hate the XRP army, you can't deny the fact that RLUSD is a trusted stablecoin. As Ripple continues to expand RLUSD's availability across more trading platforms and integrate it further into its payment system infrastructures, market analysts anticipate additional volatility and growth in trading volumes. The stablecoin's journey is just beginning, suggesting essentially that recent surge may merely be the first of its many noteworthy developments. With regulatory clarity improving for certain aspects of Ripple's businesses and the company actively pursuing global expansions, RLUSD stands to essentially benefit from the broader momentum behind Ripple's ecosystem, and the early spike in trading volume demonstrates the market's initial interest, but the stablecoin's long-term success will depend on sustained utility and adoption across various use cases. And for the cryptocurrency industry, RLUSD represents an interesting addition to the stablecoin landscape, potentially bringing Ripple's focus on efficient cross-border transactions to the stablecoin sector. As this story unfolds, market participants will be watching closely to see how RLUSD moves differently compared to the crowded market space of stablecoins. Also, RLUSD adds indirect value to the XRP ledger. Essentially, adds indirect value to XRP because it brings eyes to the XRP ledger, which adds indirect value to XRP, in other words. But on everything we've talked about on essentially tonight's live, regarding the companies that are coming inside the crypto space, most importantly as well, and RLUSD doing tremendously well for itself, it's great to see that happening. But with Wisdom Tree, another major ginormous institutional company, US mega house, entering the crypto space after Liberation Day, or with BNY Mellon offering crypto services to institutions and announcing it today after Liberation Day. These are clear signs of the crypto space is not doomed. It's actually doing quite well for itself. The figures might not be there, and you might be looking at the charts and going, how is the crypto space doing good? Honestly, a lot of people might just open up their charts right now and go to themselves, how is the crypto space doing good? XRP's down, Bitcoin's down, XLM's down, HBAR's down, this is down, that's down, this is down, everything's down. How's the crypto space doing good? Well, think of the positives. One of them being the SEC dropped cases one by one. The other one being essentially institutions one by one are entering the crypto space, while war scenarios are happening and tariff scenarios were happening. Now that tariff scenarios have happened, still one by one institutions are entering the market space. And behind the scenes, the US House Committee is passing regulations for stablecoins and regulations for the banking sector. Also behind the scenes, the OCC is telling banks to start utilizing crypto assets. Also behind the scenes, in terms of foreign market spaces, South Korea is about to be opening its floodgates to foreign investors. They move a tremendous amount of billions of dollars in crypto assets. Also, 3,500 South Korean institutions are about to be entering the crypto space as well, flooding the market space. South Korea has also admitted to following US Trump's footsteps in the crypto space. Brazil also admitted today that they're following America's footsteps into this crypto space. South Africa has already decided to wave the white flag to tariffs, and they want to join Trump's administration. Essentially, they want to join Trump's footsteps. Italy is already waving the white flag to the United States regarding tariffs. The UK is also waving the white flag as well. Spain is already on the verge of waving the white flag as well. Taiwan and Thailand are waving the white flag also towards Donald Trump. A lot of positive is actually happening around the world for the crypto space and regarding tariffs. But again, a lot of people are very, very fixated on tariffs, thinking tariffs are going to be long-lasting and they're going to damage the crypto space forever, and that crypto is ruining the crypto space forever. So even though everything is down, the market space is down, you need to stop focusing on price action, because the crypto space can go from incredibly red, incredibly bearish, to incredibly bullish in a split second. In a split second, the crypto markets could turn bullish. In a split second. Just focus on what's happening behind the scenes. Focus on what Deutsche Bank said to everybody. Deutsche Bank said these are crucial times. They announced it today. In their own words, Deutsche Bank said these are crucial times. Everybody needs to pay attention. And Deutsche Bank said everybody needs to position themselves correctly, including themselves. Regulations are being built for the crypto space behind the scenes. Foundation is being built. The SEC is still very extremely positive, dropping cases one by one. Today's case was Gemini's case. They're about to be dropping fully. And institutions are entering the crypto space one by one. And these are not small, medium-sized businesses. These are ginormous institutions that are entering the crypto space and offering services to their high-profile institutional clients. So focus on that rather than price action, because as you may know, if you've been inside the crypto space for the longest time, the crypto market can go from where it's sitting now to tremendously going up like that. Honestly, if you've been inside the crypto space for the longest time, you would know that. but the crypto space can turn bullish in a split second. Next clientele enter the crypto space or institutions. Don't let the tariffs distract you, thinking this is long-term doom for the crypto space. Don't let the wars think you essentially this is long space, doom for the crypto space in any sort of a way. It isn't. A lot of things are being planned behind the sidelines. Focus on that, not the price action. On that note, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. This was episode 292 of the CMF Live. We are on episode 292 right now. Incredible. Episode 292. Episode 293 is tomorrow. So, the CMF stands, if you watch this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles, and I'm hosting a live that you're watching. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time onwards, which means you can tune to this live tomorrow at 11:25 p.m. again onwards UK time. And in this live, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations. Vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and what advice is only for entertainment purposes. And on tonight's live, we talked about RLUSD doing exceptionally well just within 24 hours. We talked about essentially the pro-SEC chairman, Paul Atkins, getting the votes he needs to become an actual chairman of the SEC very soon. We talked about BNY Mellon entering the crypto space, offering essentially their clientele, their high-profile clientele services inside the crypto space out of all days today. We talked about Brazil's largest bank entering the crypto space today. We talked about essentially MicroStrategy raising more money to buy Bitcoin this month. We talked about essentially on tonight's live regarding South Korea opening its doors to foreign markets to come towards their crypto space. And South Korea is moving roughly in the billions when it comes to the crypto space. They've been handling a tremendous amount of billions inside the crypto space. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding Deutsche Bank's perspective on the market space. We talked about on tonight's live regarding the US House Committee approving the CBDC bills, anti-CBDC bills, and what room of error there is left in that. We talked about also another ginormous Wall Street firm, Wisdom Tree, offering more services to the crypto space and expanding into it. We also talked about ACH, HBAR, USDC coming together. We also went through news regarding cryptocurrency CEOs predicting how tariffs will play out. And we talked about on tonight's live regarding Genius Group liquidating some of their Bitcoins due to their court proceedings, and a perspective that came out from Eric Trump and a perspective that came out from a tremendous amount of politicians we went through from different jurisdictions around the world of how some of them have already started to wave the white flag for Trump and say to the United States that they want to work with the United States and they don't want to tariff them instead. So tariffs are not really working out for a lot of countries, and a lot of countries are starting to realize that they need to start helping. Essentially, start working with the United States rather than trying to go into a tariff battle, because it's a losing battle for those countries. Now, before we do go, let's go to the comment section first, just in case I did miss out on anybody's comments. As I said previously, this is live. So let me just see what's going on in the comment section, just in case I did miss somebody's comments. We were here. Shelly says, Stormy says, thank you. The Republicans won the majority. Why the Democrats acting like clowns? Facts. Shelly says, what do you make of Elena Tarrett's recent tweet about the new entry just added to the case? Urgent request to present decisive evidence in favor of the defendants and in favor, I would have to, of the liberty for the American people. Your thoughts? I would have to see what she's exactly referring to give a better perspective. I'll give a perspective more, or I'll give you a perspective inside the Telegram group. But Shelly, I would have to, after the live, I'll go through what she essentially tweeted out and what she's exactly referring to. Well, thank you for letting me know that Elena Torres sent out a new tweet essentially regarding the urgent request to present decisive evidence in favor of the defendants and in favor of the liberty of the American people. I'm definitely going to take a look at that. Thanks for letting me know, Shelly. Talk about everything being down, though. Seriously, facts. Yeah, the feds are big man. JP, good night, Miles, and all CMF. Thank you for a great live and news. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Good evening, Miles and family. Mickey, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Mike, good day, Miles and CMF. See you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual as well. Thanks, Miles. Good night, CMF. Stormy, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles and CMF. Great live. See you tomorrow. Free forever. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. We got this though. Hang on, and everyone, all love. Take care. All Ray. Let's go, brother. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you so much for the $10 donation as well, Ray. Have a good night, Miles. God bless. Cali, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual as well. God bless. Thanks, Legend. Night and day CMF. Let's go. Shelly, see you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Brother, I sent you a DM. Thanks for a great live. Let's go. Come on. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual as well. I'll check out the DM as well after the live. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual, for episode 293 of the CMF Live. By the way, thank you so much to everyone from the CMF who has liked this live on X, who's retweeted this live on X, who's essentially put a comment outside the live on X and hashtag the XRP on me. And thanks so much to everyone on YouTube who's watching right now, who's liked the live as well and put a comment outside the live. And thanks so much to everyone who followed me during this live and subscribed to me during this live as well. If you haven't, please follow, please subscribe, retweet, like, comment, and hashtag the XRP on me. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. See everybody tomorrow for episode 293 of the CMF Live. Thanks as always, Miles. Let's go, Pierce. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Mike, see you tomorrow, brother, same time as usual as well. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual.